Shaken and Disturbed, everybody. I am Daddy Daryn Carp here with Mama
Mother
Bear
John.
John Thrasher. We're telling you to smash that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. Excuse me, but of course, what would Shaken and Disturbed be without Fats McGee, Fats Domino? His name
Magic.
is oh,
Oh,
now he's
wait.
disappeared. Oh wait,
Hold on.
you got to put him in front of you, John. Put him in front of you, like
In front of me.
look at
Here
this
we go.
look at this little fatness, Everdeen. This little tub. You look like you're kissing nothing right now, which is
He's
great. There he
kissing
is.
me. He's
Here.
kissing me. Look
Oh
at
my
him.
God. If you're
This is what
watching
I
on
mean.
YouTube
Yeah,
or you're
watch on YouTube.
watching or Patreon supporters, you're really
Hold on.
getting magic. He's a full-figured gal. He's a full-figured gal.
I have to move my microphone so you can see it in
Obviously,
the thing.
yeah.
Hold on.
No,
Give me
give
one
us his full
second.
figure. Give us his full fig. Let's see this boy really spread his wings. Dear, oh, these are our little men. This is the thumbnail of this week. And cats are not going to be harmed in the process of our recording this, but look at this little tubbis. Is he not a tubbis? He's a tubbis.
Sorry. Thank you for going with that for a second. He has been so cuddly. I just mentioned it on our Patreon NMR if you want to go listen to it.
Because you were
I
traveling.
know. I was traveling for work last week and he's just,
I was with
he never. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say he's not, like I said on the show, a big lap cat, but like the last several months, he is like curled up in my chest right
Well, can
now.
you
And
manage to record with him in your arms so we can like?
I
Can you
could, but
manage? But
I
what?
think it's just too much. He's like he weighs them as much as
That's a
a
what?
Dalmatian, okay, a Labrador. So I don't think I
I was
can.
with three very big or big boned orange cats last night at my friend's. We were playing Rummy Cube and she had Cheesecake Factory cheesecake. So she's like, "Oh my God, it's best cheesecake. Like, let's go do it." So we had Cheesecake Factory cheesecake and I just looked over these three tubbisy
Yeah,
Tubbis is just such a good name. Three
yeah, it is.
Tubbis three orange big boys and I said to my friend Cameron, I was like, "Cam, if Cheesecake Factory were a word in the dictionary and
Yeah,
all those words had to correspond with an image, would the three boys not be what the Cheesecake Factory looks like?" And so for the rest of the night, we were
yeah.
just calling them cheesecake factories and like blue collar workers working at
You
this
know,
factory because they are filled with fucking cheesecake.
I
That's all
was
I'm
gonna
saying.
say cheesecake is kind of a cute name for a cat.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. I might have to mark.
There's
I have
so
a
many.
little note in my phone of like
I've got
names for future
so
cats.
many
Yeah,
names that I just when Nadine and I bite the bullet and get 6
get one.
cats and a dog, I think I'll be ready. I'm just slipping that in. I always slip that in with her. You know what I
You're
mean?
like when I thought you were gonna be like, and we finally get a kitten. You're like, get 6 cats and 2 dogs. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
I mean, I always do that with her. She's like, "Oh, what do you want to do today?" I'm like, "Let's get 3 cats." And she's like, "Okay." Or do you want to go grocery shopping? I'm like, "Yep. Can we get 3
and
cats
then
in the
get three
meantime?"
cats. Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I love that.
unfortunately, I don't think this story has anything to do with cats today. So
No, this
you're
one's
gonna
tough.
want to tune out if you are just too much of a cat lover,
Yeah.
which I am. I'm barely going to be participating in this episode.
That's right. That's right. I just want to mention we're going to talk about a lot of very interesting things on next week's NMR that will be on our public feed. Spoiler alert, I'm not happy, but we'll talk about that next time. But
Oh,
secondly,
oh,
I want to maybe bring
oh.
up our favorite cat name from our lists that we have. Like just one, just to tease it out there. Or do you think that's pressure to then use it later? So maybe we shouldn't do it that way.
Well, I will tell you ones that I've been coming back to, but I can't. I don't think we're gonna
Well,
name the cats
okay.
this,
Well, then
but I
what if
can.
people steal too? Maybe we
I
don't want to
don't.
do
Yeah, I
that.
don't want people
Okay.
to
We're
steal
thinking out
it.
loud. Yeah. All right.
Um, yeah,
I'll
but
tell you one that I liked at one point next week on NMR that I liked at one point that I know I won't use. And then I want the listeners to weigh in. How's that?
okay.
All right.
Can you? Oh, next week you're gonna say it.
Next week on next week's NMR. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just teasing next week's NMR because it's a doozy. I can literally we already have the agenda for next week's NMR. You're gonna want to tune in.
You're gonna yeah,
That's all I'm
full
gonna
a
say.
full agenda of my
That's all
life,
I'm gonna
and
say.
John's impact on it. I'll say that.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly right. Yeah,
let's get
that's
into this
actually
week.
true. Yeah.
Let's get into this week's case, John.
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so guys, this week we're back in 1999. Okay.
1999.
That's right. Early 1999, 28-year-old Andrew Bagby was completing his last year of medical school at the Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada with the hopes of one day becoming a surgeon. Andrew originally grew up in Sunnyvale, California with his parents Kate and David Bagby. An only child, Andrew was close to his mom and his dad, speaking with them often and visiting whenever he could. As he was moving through the final year of his studies, Andrew met another doctor working in his office, Shirley Turner. Now, Shirley was 12 years older than Andrew and an extremely intelligent woman who sailed through medical school. By the way, can you imagine sailing through medical school? I have so much respect for like lawyers and doctors because we actually just talked about this too on the Patreon NMR, just about like being a student and stuff. And I was saying on NMR that I feel like I learned how to learn better, if that makes sense. Like I know how to absorb information better than I did when I was in college. And I kind of want to like go back to school a little bit and like just see how I do. And like, I don't know, I've just become a better student of life. I went
Well,
to a
I
very
think
big party school and I was like not
well,
always
and you're
kind of
in
present.
college, you're kind of thinking about like, okay, like what do I want to major into? What do I think I want to do for my future? But I
Right.
think now it's like, okay, well, I know what I'm interested in and I know what I'd want to do. So like you can go
Yeah.
back and really like become a master, if you will, an
Yeah.
expert or whatever we're gonna say in something that
Yeah.
you really like, as opposed to something that your parents are like, okay, I gotta get my math
Yeah.
course done. I gotta get
Right.
one course in
Oh my God.
geography or whatever the fuck
Exactly.
it is. Like you have to take so many requirements just to give you a well-rounded education that now you can really get
Yeah.
specific on things. I
Yeah.
mean, I do think it's so clear with people in college who major in things that's just like it's really hard to translate to jobs afterwards, like gender studies, for example. I'm not saying that that's like a worthless major, but it's super hard
How do
to
you apply
translate
that?
that
Yeah.
specifically. I mean, even sometimes we talk about your English degree, and it's like, unless
Yeah,
you
yeah,
wanted
for
to
sure.
become a novelist or go to a creative writing
Oh,
school or something, it's like that doesn't necessarily translate into a job. Not that psych did either, but I kind of made it work. It's just like, I think now you
yeah.
can get more specialized, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, not to go on about this, but yeah, I was a creative writing major when I first started in college because I had won like all these awards for my creative writing in high school. Like I did poems and all this type of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll turn that into a degree. And then, like, literally halfway through my sophomore year, I was like, I don't know that there's a job market for poetry. So I switched it to professional writing and editing, which gives me a more kind of like well-rounded, marketable degree. But yeah, I just wonder, like, if I got another bachelor's or a master's or something, like, what would I do, and how good of a student would I be? I don't know, just something to think about. By the
No,
way,
I think that's a good point.
for all of you listening to the show and not watching on YouTube, I am giving a little bit of cleavage today. I don't know if that's interesting or makes you want to puke, but it is available on YouTube as of
And not
Monday.
only cleave, but a little chest hair going with it.
Yeah, a
Just a
little
little
hairy,
curl. Yep.
a little bit of like hairy boobs, actually, if you want to check that out. It's available for you now.
Me and him. Yeah.
Early on page, early
Who's
on
gonna get more
Patreon.
likes? All of a sudden, our subscriber list just goes up.
Yeah,
Just goes
everyone
up.
unsubscribed instantly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, early on Patreon, of course, we release episodes on Friday, both audio and video, and then video on Monday. So go check it out. Okay, back to this story. I don't know why I derail us all the time like this. So she sailed through medical school, and although she did sail through medical school, she had virtually no bedside manner. And in fact, had a habit of making inappropriate jokes or comments that often left those around her feeling a little bit uneasy. You hear this in a lot of people that have like really high IQs. Like they can be really, really smart, but sort of emotionally or like not mentally, but like
But not
emotionally
with it.
detached,
Yeah.
socially detached is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. That's not a fact. It's just kind of something I've always heard. But anyway, this behavior was a notorious enough throughout the hospital that Shirley's nickname amongst fellow doctors was the witch.
Oh, damn.
Wow. I wish somebody would call me the witch.
Damn.
Magic
Is
screaming
Shirley,
behind me.
yeah, is Shirley being me and some of my ex-girlfriends are calling me that? Because that seems
Oh,
very appropriate. Here we
oh,
go. Ooh,
oh.
ooh,
There we go.
ooh.
Oh, I know some of the okay, anyway,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
We're like
Nonetheless,
reminiscing. We're like,
we're like, I
oh,
think I know who you're talking about. Nonetheless, Shirley and Andrew hit it off right away. And according to Andrew's former classmates, Shirley seemed to appear one day and was just kind of around all of the time after that. And by the time Andrew and Shirley met, Shirley had been divorced twice and was recently out of a long-term relationship with a younger man. And it was
wow.
yeah, and it was later learned that this man had attempted to end his relationship with Shirley multiple times, but she continued to pursue him so aggressively that he eventually moved from Newfoundland, Canada, to the neighboring town of Labrador in
Uh,
order to cut communication with her, which is what I just compared magic to in this episode earlier in this episode.
well, to be fair, you
Um,
compared him to the size and weight of a
of a
Labrador. Very
Labrador.
important. Yep.
Of a Labrador, exactly. Well, undeterred, Shirley was able to track him down to his new home. So her ex
Jesus.
moved again, this time crossing the border to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which, by the way, as someone who lives in Pittsburgh, I just want to make sure everyone knows Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, though both begin with the letter P, are not the same city and are nowhere near each other. They're on opposite sides of
No,
Pennsylvania.
Alabama's right in the middle of it in
Alabama's
Pennsylvania.
in the middle. Hello, US
Yeah.
Geography 101. Talk about being a student. So
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
Shirley hunted down this man again, and this time overdosing on over-the-counter sleep medication and waiting for hours on the steps outside of his apartment building for him to return home. So
Ha-
things are getting, as I said, hairy
We
very
need.
quickly.
Have you watched Baby Reindeer?
No, I keep hearing about how amazing it
I
is.
don't want to spoil it,
Don't tell me
guys.
anything.
I've watched it. We'll talk about it on next week's NMR. John, can you
Yeah,
add
I
that to
will.
NMR
Yep,
as I read this? But
yep, yep.
for everyone, you need to watch this. It's a true story. The guy who was starring in
Oh,
it happened to him. He was the one who wrote it. Just just think
okay.
about stalker and that type of
Does
relationship, but you need to watch it on Netflix.
Speaking of, inappropriate stuff like that, does this have anything to do with a former bartender or your pregnancy?
Oh, no,
No?
definitely
Not it's
not.
not a
Definitely,
documentary of
it's
that?
not,
Okay.
that baby reindeer. No, has
Different
yeah.
has
Now it's an
unfortunately
adolescent reindeer. Yes,
okay.
exactly. You will
That
want to
that
see this though.
that baby reindeer is in different custody is
It's
what you're
attending
saying.
Carnegie Mellon as we
Got it.
speak, John. You
Oh,
should know
okay.
that. Yeah, yeah.
I'll keep an eye out.
So when her
Shout out to
ex,
Tersh. Here
when
we
her
go.
yeah, shout out to Tersh. When her ex found her, she was covered in scrapes and minor abrasions from dragging
Oh
herself
my
up and
god.
down the cement steps in her groggy state.
Mm,
Obviously there's something going on here, something deeper. This isn't just like a scorned
yeah.
lover. She's already with she's dating Andrew. She's
Yeah.
fallen in love with Andrew, but obviously at a young age, being divorced twice,
Yeah.
maybe there's some relationship troubles that are kind of happening at this point.
Well, I was gonna say, as somebody who has notoriously talked about the time where I dressed up as Amy Winehouse for Halloween, walked home barefoot, and seesawed into a broken window of my own apartment,
As one does.
I do know that you do get scrapes and minor abrasions from dragging yourself up and down cement. So I'm
That
just
you
I'm
do.
I'm weighing in from a first person account on that regard.
I can only imagine what this ex was thinking,
Yeah,
especially
can
as
you
a guy,
imagine?
because I mean, she could have easily said he did it, and I'm sure people would believe her, just especially if he was
Yeah,
a
that's a good
younger guy,
point.
he could take over space. But here's the thing with her ex found a half written suicide note. Shirley was
Mm,
brought to a Philadelphia hospital where it was found that she had not taken enough medication for her situation to be considered a serious suicide attempt. And in that way, I think it was
mm.
just basically a cry for help, trying to get the attention of someone, probably this ex. Now, Shirley left the hospital in the middle of the night, returned home to Newfoundland, and never spoke to her ex again.
Can I just say one thing here though? Let's keep in mind too that this is 1999, right? Because I think that although that wasn't that long ago, 25 years ago, I think, suicide what's a quote serious suicide attempt? I mean, aren't they all serious to some degree like that? I mean, I get where what they're saying here with the medication, but I wonder if in 2024 that same attempt might be looked at a little bit differently because we have evolved a little bit on mental health over the last several years. So,
Yeah, I don't know I'm not a mental health professional, so I don't know what the
right.
specific qualifications are, but I imagine attempting to hang yourself or doing something like that is a little bit different than maybe like
Yeah.
drinking a fifth of vodka and taking
Right.
7 Advil.
Some kind of
I don't
thing. Yeah.
know, but I'm just saying like there does seem to be maybe a difference of
Yeah, you would think
severity
so. Yeah.
in things that happen. Now, okay, so she never speaks to her ex again. Now, of
Right.
course, Andrew knew none of this when he started dating Shirley, although he did learn that she was a mother of 3. Wow. Her 2 eldest children live with their grandparents, and her youngest lived with her father, who was Shirley's ex-husband. It's a
Mhm.
lot to take on.
It's a lot of life going on
Even
over
for a
there.
neuroatypical person, that is a
Yeah.
lot to sort of take on. And Andrew visited his parents shortly after he and Shirley started seeing each other and was excited to tell them about his new friend. During this visit, Shirley called Kate and David's home to speak to Andrew, who happened to be out. Kate and David are obviously Andrew's parents. Now, instead, Shirley started talking to Kate, regaling her with stories about her family, complaints about her ex-husbands. I would say that this is just women befriending women, just kind of kibitzing and doing that stuff. Now, when the phone call concluded, Kate commented that Shirley seemed nice enough, but it was difficult to get off the phone with her. She just wouldn't stop talking. There's a Seinfeld episode about that. There's just no break in the conversation. We're like, all
Yeah.
right, where you're just like,
Yeah.
great day. And you always know that break in the conversation where you're supposed to say, like,
Yeah.
all right, great talking to you. We'll have
Yeah.
that. But if there is no room to say that, all right, that
Right.
is
Well,
tough.
if you listen to Thursday's this past week's NMR on Patreon, I just would not shut up. I literally just kept
And
going.
I kept saying, all right, to
Pretty
John,
much
but it
you kind of
wasn't
did. Literally, she had to
happening.
move things off of our agenda because I wouldn't stop talking. Anyway, keep going.
No, you were perfect. Well, when the phone call concluded, so she said that she seemed nice enough, but when Andrew
Yeah.
finished school, he got accepted to a surgical residency program in upstate New York, and Shirley took another job in Iowa. That is pretty long distance. Now, the two continued their relationship long distance, but as the time went on, Andrew just seemed to grow tired of it. Listen, I've never dated someone when they were taking a residency program, but one of my best friends is a doctor, and
Mm-hmm.
even her now being a full doctor, I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know how she has a girlfriend. Like, it is so hard to date someone like that. So
My
just with schedules overnights, shit like that, it's just
well,
crazy.
and also, yeah, one of my best friends is dating someone who's in their residencies right now, and they have to move every couple years. I mean, it's a lot.
It's a
A
right, because then
lot.
you get placed certain places and it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
So Andrew grows tired of this relationship, frequently complaining to his friends that Shirley just kind of refuses to get off the phone. She refuses to leave him alone, even from across the country. And he probably is such a nice guy. He doesn't know how to fucking end the conversation. Be like, all right,
Yeah. So in July of 2001, Andrew attended a wedding with some friends who recalled that over the course of the evening, Shirley called his phone over 30 times. Was it a Motorola Razor? We may never know. We talked about that on NMR. Lots of references to NMR today. So
yes.
while he answered several of her calls, eventually he began sending her straight to voicemail and seemed to
Ooh,
be
ooh.
extremely aggravated. Around
He
this time,
as the kids would
yeah.
say, he left her on red.
Left her on red in a sense, absolutely. Around this time, Andrew realized surgery wasn't for him, and he pivoted his career actually, taking up a new residency at a family practice in Pennsylvania. At the start of October, Shirley was granted a gun permit. Cool, because that seems to be the next logical thing that can happen here. And immediately went out and purchased a 22 caliber handgun and enrolled in a firearm training program. Okay, well that's good. At least we're learning how to do this.
Yeah.
By by mid-October, Shirley called Andrew with big news to share, though. She was 3 months pregnant. Now, the two planned for Shirley to visit Andrew in his new town in early November. And on November 3rd, the day Shirley was scheduled to fly home, she told Andrew that actually, just kidding, psych, she's been lying about the pregnancy,
What
actually.
a roller fucking coaster.
So Andrew, as you can expect, was furious about this and ended the relationship with her over at the airport and sent her back home. I mean, yeah, I would do this too if someone
If
was
you're
lying to
lying
me about
about it,
that.
or if
Yeah,
it was like a false positive, that's different than lying.
that's different. Yeah,
Having something kind of happen mistakenly is another thing than just being like, yeah, I made it all up just to see you. And
exactly.
commit you to this. Like, that's wild.
Exactly. However, Shirley was back in Pennsylvania 2 days later, having driven 16 hours from the Iowa airport to Andrew's house. Andrew arrived at work. This is getting crazy. Andrew arrived at work Tuesday morning complaining that Shirley showed up on his doorstep at 5:30 in the morning. His supervisor recalls Andrew advising Andrew, quote, "If I break up with somebody and put them on a plane and send them 1,300 miles away, if they knock on my front door, I'm going out the back door and I'm calling the police." This is according to his supervisor.
Yeah,
And I would do that too.
me
That's like
too.
beyond. He urged Andrew not to meet up with Shirley in private at all, but Andrew assured his supervisor that he was overreacting and agreed to meet with Shirley after his shift. And you might guess where this may go.
And this is hard because it's like how much of these little interactions are just because we want to believe that they're overreacting. And like if you take it seriously and they just end up being
Yeah.
emotional, you feel like a heel for doing this. But then
Right.
if you underreact to something, obviously it could be too little too late. And so it's sort of like a
Yeah.
better safe than sorry. And, and maybe he was also like, I'm a guy and she's a
Yeah.
girl and I could take her. Maybe. I don't know. I'm
Maybe.
just speculating that I wonder if the sexes were reversed, like would this happen? And
Mm-hmm.
after work, Andrew drove to a nearby park for their 6 p.m. meeting. His body was found the following morning. He'd been
Mm.
shot once in the face, the chest, the back of his head, and twice in his buttocks.
Mm.
Authorities who investigated the scene found a discarded handgun and bullet casings close to Andrew's body of an identical type to one owned by Shirley. She wasn't really great at getting rid of the evidence.
No, and remember she just had bought this gun or
It
had
was
bought a
22.
gun. Yeah.
Right. Now, additionally, a witness who was near the park at the time of the shooting told investigators that they had seen a car parked next to Andrews in the lot that matched the description of Shirley's vehicle. Police spoke to Shirley the following day. She was back at home in Iowa, insisted she was sick in bed on the evening of the murder.
Hmm.
This girl willing to drive 16 hours, though, to and fro. So I don't know.
And I'll say this too again, just to keep some relevance here about the timing. 2000, where are we now? 1999, 2000, wherever it was. There weren't cameras on every corner. No one had an iPhone yet. You weren't able to
They weren't driving
record all this.
Teslas to track our locations.
That's right. And so it's a little bit easier to say that you were sick in bed all night because there probably weren't traffic cameras, monitoring your license plate and being able to track you, like
Well,
Daryn
not
just
only
said.
that, in fact, she even denied she ever made the drive from Iowa to Pennsylvania at
Mm-hmm.
all. So she's just basically like, no, I've been here. I don't know what you're talking about. But investigators were able to get hold of her phone records, which showed her phone pinging off cell phone towers along the route to and from Andrews Town. So we always have cell phone records, which was big in the Adnan Syed case. That
I
was
was
happening
just
right around this
I was just gonna
time.
say this was the same time, so should we include? But I think that's a little bit of a different case because Adnan lived in the area and was not traveling
Right. If
across
if
state
she was sick in
lines.
bed,
Right.
she would certainly Iowa to Pennsylvania is not like a 2-hour drive at any given
Right.
place. I mean, this is long. Now,
Right.
with an overwhelming amount of, albeit circumstantial, but evidence against her, police returned with a warrant for her arrest, only to
Oh
find
my
that she had
god.
already flown back to Canada.
She's like,
And
"See you later. You can't catch me across these borders."
well, on December 12th, Shirley was
Hey,
arrested in Newfoundland, but released on $75,000 bail after just a few hours. The Pennsylvania
interesting.
court had submitted a request for her extradition, so she was a free woman while the paperwork was pending, as long as she turned in her passport and promised not to leave Newfoundland.
Hmm.
Now, 2 months later, with the extradition paperwork still pending, because of course, Shirley made an announcement. She was actually pregnant with Andrew's baby. Now,
Oh
Andrew's
boy.
parents, David and Kate, weren't sure what to think. They had no idea if she was being honest about her pregnancy. Obviously, she doesn't have a good track record with that, let alone if the baby had actually been
I was
fathered
just
by
gonna say
their
that.
now deceased son.
Yeah.
But if Shirley was indeed telling the truth, they definitely wanted custody of their grandchild and being
Oh
this
my god,
second
yeah.
separate legal process of petitioning the court for rights over the unborn baby. These
Yeah.
parents, man, I can only imagine.
Yeah, so by May of 2002, Shirley was still free on bail in Canada and almost no headway had been made on her extradition. In spite of the huge amount of evidence, the courts were tied up with deciphering the legal interpretation of language in Canada's extradition treaty that would ultimately help decide whether or not Shirley could be sent back to the US to be tried for murder. In July of 2022, Shirley gave birth to baby Zachary. A DNA test determined that he was Andrew's biological son. I just kind of read that like Murray. What am I saying? I just kind of read that
Mari?
like like Mari. He was Andrew's
He
biological son,
You are not the father.
but
Yes, but
in
in this
this
case,
case,
he is.
he was. That right, exactly.
I'm
Okay, we
just
got that
doing
out.
the
You're
Maury
doing it. Okay,
interpretation. Yeah, yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Just to be clear for everybody listening, this is Andrew is the father. Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Kate and David settled with Shirley out of court and were granted supervised access to their grandson. They were allowed one visit per week, which was required to take place at family court under strict supervision. Kate and David cherished the brief periods they got to spend with Zachary, taking lots of photos, buying new clothes and toys to send home with him, and telling him stories about the father that he would never get a chance to meet, which is so heartbreaking.
That's so sad.
David even started working on a video compilation of Andrew's life, asking friends and relatives to send in recordings sharing their favorite memories of their late son so that they could one day share it with Zachary. That's really beautiful.
It's-
And listen, I'm not trying to make it about me, but I lost my uncle in 2007 and he had a 3-year-old daughter at the time. And
mm,
unfortunately, a lot of family and friends didn't have a lot of video. As I said, in 2007 even, video, of course there were video cameras, but not everyone had an iPhone at that stage. So, that's one thing I kind of really regret, and it's kind of sad is that there isn't
yeah.
a lot of video. So I like that that David was doing something like this to preserve those memories. Now, Shirley was under court order to refrain from contacting Kate and David, but did so anyway, sending them photos of the baby and even a baby book, asking them to fill out their side of the family tree.
That's so manipulative because
It
obviously
really
for them to say
is.
no, it feels like they want
Yeah.
access to Zachary and she's kind of this key in order to
Yeah.
get in,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I'm assuming at this point, there's no direct way to sort of even conclude that she is connected to this case, that she hasn't been able to have a trial yet. So they
Right, she
don't even know
hasn't been
the
convicted.
evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't even say that yet, but still, obviously this woman parents have
Yeah.
hunches.
Yeah, exactly. So though the Bagbys were convinced Shirley had killed Andrew, they too kept contact with Shirley in order, of course, to maintain as much access to Zachary as possible. And that's the
Really
sad
thin
part of
line.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really thin line of all of this going down. We don't even know if the parents at this point knew that she had lied to
Yeah,
Andrew
that's
by saying
true.
she was
Right.
pregnant and then lied again because it actually was true. So
Right.
I don't know why she would do that though, because if she was pregnant, he might have stayed with her. Like he might have. So why
Yeah.
lie? Why
Hard
take
to
it
say.
back?
I mean, when you're
Now,
this emotionally and mentally unstable, like it seems Shirley
right,
is,
exactly. Maybe it's
you
just to
know.
like create chaos,
Right.
and there's like
Right.
a normalcy in that chaos. Now, in November of 2002, a Canadian judge ruled that there was enough evidence against Shirley for the case to be taken to trial.
Hmm.
Shirley was taken to a Canadian jail, and Kate and David were awarded full custody
Wow.
of Zachary. Now, part of the custody agreement required them to take one phone call from Shirley every day and make a weekly drive of 150 miles round trip, so about 2.5 hours approximately, to the
Mm-hmm.
prison so that Shirley could see her son. Okay, as of right now, where it stands, like, I don't necessarily mind that only because she is the biological mother of this kid. She's in prison, so it's not like she's going to be a harm to him, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
it's
but
being
if
court
she's the
ordered,
right, and if
you
she
know?
is the murderer, which it seems to be at this stage in the game, like you don't want your son around somebody like that,
Totally, but she's still the
grandson.
mother of the
Yeah.
grandson. So it's like it's
Yeah, that's a
so
good point.
hard, it's still so hard. She's still the biological mother and even though she might be a crazy person, she's
Yeah.
still maybe
Well,
someone that Zachary later would want to get to know. I don't
this
know.
is a good question for listeners. What do you guys think? If a parent, let's assume we know where this is going to go. Let's assume she is the murderer for a moment. If the other parent is the murderer, do you think, listeners, we just expressed our own thoughts. Do you think the other parent, that parent rather, is entitled to be around their child? I guess technically they are, but I mean, like, oh my God, I would not be able, if I was the grandparents in this situation, I would not be able to sleep knowing that that was the
No.
case.
Well,
So it's a
obviously
dilemma.
this obviously forced Kate and David to have to interact with Shirley face to face every week. So it's kind of
Right.
a constant reminder of this. Now, in
Right.
January of 2003, the Canadian court re-released Shirley from prison on bail with the explanation that they didn't believe her to be a threat to the public.
Ooh, well,
Zachary was
okay.
returned to Shirley's custody, and Kate and David were once again back to visitation. This time, they were granted 3 weekly, 3 to 4 hour visits and one overnight visit every 2 weeks. So, 3 weekly. So, you're basically seeing your kid, if you max that out, 12 hours a week
Mhm.
and one 24-hour visit every 2 weeks. Not a lot of time,
Yeah, and it's also not
but
probably a
better than
great,
nothing.
it's better than nothing, but it's probably not a great life experience for Zachary. I mean, who wants to be split up and like, see, in these kind of out of sync routines on a weekly basis?
Well, I mean, divorced parents do it, but I think that the
Yeah, no, yeah.
damage, and again, my parents aren't divorced and I don't have kids, but I think a lot of the damage comes from what the parents say when the other parent isn't around.
No, it's true. Absolutely, it
Like
does.
your
Yeah,
dad is this, your mom is this. Like so much damage can be done if
totally.
Kate and David, we're just like, okay, you're going to go with your mom now, and maybe
Right.
hyping her up, not saying the truth, but we don't know what Shirley's saying. And so
That's
that's
true.
going to be the thing that really fucks up the kid. Now, this
Right.
once again required David and Kate needing to spend large stints of time with the woman they believe
Right.
to be their son's killer. Now, this routine continued until June 10th of 2003 when the court finally ordered Shirley's extradition back to the United States, where she would finally face trial for murder. Shirley's legal team appealed, and a hearing date was set for September 25th of that year. On August 16th, Kate and David spent a day at a water park with Zachary and Shirley. The Bagbys agreed
Oh
to
my
drive
God.
Shirley and the baby home at the end of the day. And when they got home, baby Zachary was asleep in the car, as a baby is wont to do in a car. But
Right.
instead of simply taking him inside, Shirley woke the baby up and said, "Say goodbye to grandma and granddad." And when Zachary
Wow.
began to cry, Shirley picked him up and said, "You can't always be with your grandparents," and went inside, which
Yeah,
is
this
maybe to the naked eye something of just like, all right, say bye. You're going to see them in a week or you're going to talk to them tomorrow.
yeah.
But knowing Shirley and knowing this case like we kind of do, this feels very ominous and very foreshadowy.
Yeah, well, this is where it gets really intense because at around 3 a.m. on August 18th, Shirley tied baby Zachary to the front of her body with a sweater and jumped off a cliff into the Atlantic
Oh my
Ocean.
God.
Police
Oh my
notified the
God.
Bagbys, who were not only completely heartbroken once again, now they've lost, their grandson on top of all of this, but enraged that Shirley had been allowed to take their grandson from them after murdering Andrew. It took David and Kate years to process their grief. I mean, how could you ever? I mean, does that ever get truly processed in this
Well, and
case?
you sort of feel like it could have been avoidable. Like, and
That's
and
my
and it's
point.
obviously really hard because if Shirley didn't, right? If she was just kind of
Mhm.
this crazy stalker, emotionally wrecked, but didn't actually kill him, then she should have rights to
Yeah,
Zachary,
it's
And
true.
so
Yeah,
it's such a sticky, slippery slope. So
absolutely.
hard.
And when they were finally able to hold their heads above water, they became zealous advocates for bail reform, actually, in the hopes that a tragedy like theirs could never befall anyone again. In 2007, David published a book about his family's arduous ordeal called Dance with the Devil, a memoir of murder and loss. In
Mm,
2008, the Bagbys released a film titled Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father.
yeah.
The film began as the video compilation, as the video compilation that David had started that we just mentioned a few minutes ago, in the hopes of one day sharing Andrew's memories with Zachary. It is now a heartbreaking true crime story and available to stream online, actually.
I've seen it actually years ago.
Oh,
I watched
really?
it, and it's really, really sad. And the film was named of 2008's top 5 documentaries by the National Board of Review of Motion Pictures, and was included
Wow.
in the Film Vault's list of top 5 good movies you'll never want to see again. And
Yeah,
I, and I,
yeah,
and I, obviously just because of how gut wrenching it is. Now, in
right.
2009, Newfoundland signed Zachary's bill into legislation. The law allows courts to justify refusing bail to people accused of serious crimes for the purpose of protecting their children. Kate
Yeah.
and David have also set up 2 scholarships in their son's name and have awarded grants to over 50 medical students, which is really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's
And the love of a parent, I mean, is probably one of the strongest forces I feel like we kind of have here.
Yeah, and at least, they were able to turn around, this really huge tragedy into something more positive for at least 50 other medical students, among other things. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
heartbreaking story there.
Well, obviously, we want to hear from the parents out there. We want to hear from everyone out there, but we
Yeah.
definitely want to hear from parents just because I'm curious, have you ever heard this law? Have you guys seen Dear Zachary? What would you do in that situation? What could you do in that situation? Let us know at Carpe Daryn, at J Thrasher, Shaken and Disturbed podcast fans on Facebook. Of course, we have our Patreon. And of course, you can comment down below on our YouTube section, which is youtube.com/at Shaken and Disturbed. All those things are in our show notes. Please reach out
Wow.
to us because I'm so curious about
Wow.
this
Wow.
opinion.
Wow. Darren's doing work there for a second.
You're welcome.
Oh, thanks for that. Well, let's do some listener shout outs, a little bit of a change of pace here. Brittany Goodman in our Facebook group posted what may be the first ever AI pictures of us,
I was going to
Daryn.
mention this on NMR. I'm glad we're waiting to this end of the episode. Yeah.
Yeah, she posted a picture. I don't even think she's responded yet as we record this about where she found this, but she shared a picture of you and I saying, quote, "When did dad's hair get lighter? I love it." And Daryn, I saw the post and in the photo, it's Daryn's face, but much lighter, almost silvery hair, which
I
is not
commented, I
accurate.
don't even know where that picture's from.
That
I
was
feel
my
like it was,
point.
I don't know, it must have been from a shoot years ago. But I commented and I said, well, first off, thank you. That's so nice. But no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the same. I mean, if you look on our YouTube, it's the same dark
Yeah, we've got the same.
chocolatey
Yeah.
brown hair, I guess we're gonna
Yeah.
say, that it's been. But it's, I was like, what the hell? You
Well,
look normal, but then you said it wasn't your
well,
face either.
no, it was my face. I know the face and the hair, that was normal, but the background, it looked like I was on a step and repeat. And I know as, I haven't been on a ton of step and repeats in my life, and I would have known for sure what that would have been. So it looks like almost like they took my face somewhere and put
I
it a different
guess.
background. I was like, "What is going on here?" But your picture was way more different than your actual face. So I don't
Yeah.
know, like, how does that even happen? I don't know. Well, Brittany, thank you for finding it.
Are the internet gods telling me something?
If you can tell us where it's from, maybe we can track it down. It looked like kind of one of those things that's like, at the bottom of the Apple podcast where it
Yeah.
shows you who the
Right.
hosts are, but
Yeah.
like my picture isn't on that. At least I don't think it is.
Well,
Anyway, we'll get to the bottom of this true crime investigation soon.
Jackie, Coco, and Don, which is a great band name, all shared a new radish meme that is making its rounds on the internet. It says, when something's
Mhm.
kind of rad, but not too rad, and includes a pic of a radish, it's
Yeah,
rad-ish.
yeah, it's
Um,
radish.
and
But our
obviously
radishes are very rad, you know what I
our
mean?
radishes are the raddest,
Yeah, absolutely. By the
right?
way,
Just incredible people.
I love our radishes. By the way, I just looked it up. I went into our podcast and that's exactly where they're
Can
from.
we change that?
I thought so. Here's the thing, and so if in case you guys don't know
That
what I'm
doesn't
talking
even
about,
look like me.
if you go on Apple Podcasts and go to the
I'm
bottom
going.
of our show page, it'll say things like the trailer, our ratings, our reviews, and it says hosts and guests, and of course Daryn and I are there as the hosts. And Daryn, it's like it's crazy. Like that is not your. It almost looks like you're wearing a wig.
It doesn't look right.
Yeah, it's really weird. I will say those two images, Apple has had this feature where it shows you the host pictures for many, many years, and they would only let like the biggest podcasts upload pictures there. I had looked into this when we were at Oxygen, and because we weren't like the number one, whatever podcast, they were just
Wild.
like not uploaded. So I don't know where this image is coming from, but that's
I don't
what's
know. Maybe you
happening.
can only get in if you don't look like yourself, because that ain't me. But
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy. If you want to see what we actually look like, though, don't forget to follow us on YouTube. Full
That's a good
video
segue.
episodes posted every single Monday.
That's right. And you can support us on Patreon if you can, of course. It means so much to us. And it is the best way to directly support the show. We have years of content now just waiting for you for as little as $5 a month or even cheaper if you sign up annually. Daryn,
And
and
what
that's
I've what
cheaper
I've learned, it's
than
cheaper than a Tesla, because I've
it's
learned
teach.
this because I
That's
just got
right.
a Tesla. That's right.
That's right. Check out our Patreon NMR this week to learn more about that. All right. That's it for this week's episode. And before we sign off, I just want to make sure everyone remembers, although you might be going into summer and allergy season may be behind you, please still take your vitamins.
And I was going to say, check your pit, not your Philadelphia. Check your pits, especially if you have a penis.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.